Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam.
On 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 20th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sun and clouds today. Another beauty. A little cooler, though, high 68. Tonight and overnight, cloudy, low 55. And then we begin what are days on end of rain. And it starts tomorrow, Wednesday, rain, and the high's only going to be 58. It's chilly right now. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 48 and clear in Yonkers up in Westchester County, 46 and clear in Pompton Lakes over in New Jersey, and it's just 49 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Thank God New Jersey transit trains are back on track. When did Joe Biden first find out he had cancer? A Bronx woman talks about the bullet that hit her. The kid accusing, how about this? The kid accused of starting a New Jersey forest fire says it's not me. And Andrew Cuomo airs his first campaign commercial. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. New Jersey transit train engineers back on the job today. They're still reviewing that deal that was offered up by New Jersey Transit, but the thought is they will accept this new contract. Pay was the sticking point. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen giving the thumbs up, telling them to get back on the job. So trains are running this morning.
Things like the Shakira concert, the Major League Baseball events, the NBA, all had factors to do with it. And I think it was planned accordingly.
I think it's the effect of next weekend is Memorial Day weekend, and they saw the effects of this weekend. There was traffic everywhere to come into the city. It was like insane.
It was a madhouse this weekend in New Jersey. Some of the train riders who are happy to have their ride back. Governor Murphy believes the strike cost the agency about $4 million a day. New Jersey Transit CEO Kevin Calori calls the deal fair, fiscally responsible. He says it won't bankrupt New Jersey Transit. This overnight worker says his Sunday night commute was way more congested than normal.
Normally, one tube of the Lincoln is going into New York at 10:30. They actually had two of them open because there's just a lot of people coming in, and I got to the Lincoln Tunnel, it was backed up, beyond the approach.
All right, so should all be back to normal. We'll check in just a few moments with Joe Nolan and see if that's the case. What's not normal is what's happening at Newark Airport. Operations there affected again yesterday. Flights in and out stopped for a short period of time. There was another outage. It only lasted maybe 20 seconds or so, but that on top of all the other ones. May 11th, there was the air traffic control equipment outage that lasted 45 minutes. There were outages on May 9th, April 28th, and air traffic controllers lost contact with planes during all of those. And so flyers who are using Newark Airport, of course, now using it with a whole lot of caution because they know there's a good chance their flight could be delayed or canceled, like this guy.
Always be prepared. You never know what's going to happen. They informed me early in the morning that there would be a 1 hour delay. Then I got here, and then there was 3 other delays. So ended up being here 6 hours.
Yeah, so airline leaders, the FAA, they met last week to discuss lowering the number of flights at Newark. The agency proposed a maximum of 28 flights an hour until next month. Now, normally there's 70 flights, so that's a big reduction. But even with all that, there were delays again yesterday. 5:03, the central part of the U.S. still dealing with the aftermath of all this severe weather. There were more deadly storms that swept through the region again overnight. This is after those tornadoes touched down over the weekend. More than 24 killed over the weekend. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear confirming 19 deaths in his state alone.
This is our 14th, I believe, federally declared weather disaster in the last 5.5 years. We keep getting hit over and over.
Yeah, and again last night, thunderstorms impacting parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma. It comes after the damage from the tornadoes that were confirmed across these states.
As much as we could get caught up in that, our job is to be there for our people. We already have recovery efforts underway.
And we heard from the mayor of St. Louis yesterday. He says the city faces a long recovery process following the tornado there over the weekend that killed 5, injured 30. Reginald Holmes says he ran home and frantically searched for his mother after the tornado ripped the roof off his family's 3-story brick house.
I was calling her name, everything, flipping over stuff, just, trying to get a response, no response.
He says his 70-year-old mom died while trying to make it to the basement.
Second floor, third floor, completely gone. Back kitchen, everything completely gone.
I've brought back so many people over the last 20 years. And for me not to be able to bring her back, it's devastating.
Yeah, that's a certified nursing assistant who tried to administer CPR to that woman, the man's mother. It did not work.
Once the house came down on her, it's like broke her neck. Man, I miss my mama, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a long cleanup process in all those states across the Midwest, especially after more weather moved in overnight. 5:05, the NTSB won't speculate on what caused Saturday's deadly ship crash into the Brooklyn Bridge, that Mexican ship. Board member Michael Graham says the process is going to take some time.
This is the start of a long process. We will not be drawing any conclusions.
Investigators arrived on the scene yesterday. NTSB working with Mexico to gain access to that Navy ship. 2 people were killed, more than dozens other injured in the collision. There was no structural damage to the Brooklyn Bridge. A preliminary report on the crash will be released in 30 days. But what the ship's captain says is he lost power right as they were coming towards the Brooklyn Bridge.
Within 30 days, we will have a preliminary report. A normal full investigation, which this is for an accident, our investigations take normally between 12 months to 24 months.
Now, some Mexican-American New Yorkers, they were at the scene yesterday praying for those 2 who passed away.
At approximately 8:25 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday, May 17th, the Mexican Navy tall ship Cuauhtémoc struck the Brooklyn Bridge on the East River, damaging the ship's 3 masts.
Yeah, okay, so they'll do this full-on investigation, but if the ship's captain essentially is saying he lost power, now they have to figure out why he lost power as he approached the Brooklyn Bridge. WABC News Time 5:09, let's go down to New Orleans. 7 of the 10 inmates who broke out of a New Orleans jail on Friday still on loose today. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry says he's confident they will be recaptured.
We have got hundreds of law enforcement agents that are working 24/7 around the clock hunting these folks down.
Yeah, but so far nothing. Landry announcing that there is a reward now, $20,000 per inmate. That's offered up by a group of people, including the FBI, ATF, contributions from the state Senate president there. The inmates face various charges, including murder, domestic abuse, possession of a firearm. Landry has ordered the Louisiana Attorney General to investigate how these inmates escaped and who's responsible. They say they think it has to be some sort of inside job. They got help from the inside.
This is what happens when those people promise that to keep criminals out of jail. Sadly, you get 10 of the most dangerous inmates that are in jail in Louisiana, they get to escape.
Now, he is blaming the local DA, who is a Democrat, for being too soft on crime for these inmates getting out.
Not only those people who may have aided and abetted them to get out, but those who continue to aid and abet them. If we find that you have aided and abetted these fugitives, you're going to jail as well.
All right, and the local DA says that's just total nonsense. It's just inmates escaped, and now we got to figure out how they did.
So I really wish that the governor would have just asked me the question you asked me, and we could have provided him all the documentation he would have easily seen.
Of course, they're checking in with the family members of these inmates, see if they've had any contact with
them.
And
so there are a number of breakdowns that occurred, and any family member who is scared or frustrated, they have every right to be.
And this DA pushing back against the governor says he's not liberal when it comes to crime.
I was going through jail calls in an effort to try to figure out who might have been involved and knew of this planned jailbreak.
Yeah, I mean, it's awfully interesting how, all of these guys working together, that's a lot of inmates, 10 in all. 3 have already been rearrested back behind bars, but 7 are still on the loose. That means they all work together. So you would think somebody on the inside was helping.
And it is frustrating that the governor would not have just simply called me over the weekend. My phone was on.
Yeah. All right, 5:11. President Trump says direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The next step after a phone call with Russian leader Vladimir Putin.
He said the tone and the spirit of the conversation were excellent, and he said negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. But it's not clear exactly when or where that will happen, although he did suggest that the Vatican had stated that it would be interested in hosting negotiations. Although it's not said, 2 things are clear from this call: that President Putin did not agree to Ukraine's suggestion of a 30-day unconditional truce, and President Trump received enough reassurance from President Putin that the Russian leader was serious about peace, at a time when the White House has said that Donald Trump has grown both weary and frustrated with how the push for peace so far has gone. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
Yeah, and there is a tag team effort here. Vice President J.D. Vance questioning yesterday whether the Russian president has an exit strategy for the war in Ukraine.
Look, I think one open question is Vladimir Putin serious about negotiating peace, right? He has made some concessions. He has taken some serious steps in these conversations, but we feel like, we're at a point where we're hitting an impasse, and that's why the president is talking to him on the phone.
And he also expressed the same frustrations with both parties after they failed to reach a consensus on a 30-day ceasefire proposal. 5:13, President Trump giving his first public comments yesterday regarding former President Biden's cancer diagnosis.
I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time.
Lots of questions, of course, about this. The president says he was surprised at the delay in the public finding out, referring to Biden's stage 4 diagnosis as stage 9. He then went on to say he took part in a complete physical and cognitive test himself recently, and he aced them.
I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test.
Okay, so lots of questions. Did the president know about this for a long time? Talking about the former President Biden weighing in on his treatment options after learning he has this aggressive form of prostate cancer that has spread to his bones. Doctors saying, is it possible he didn't know that he had this?
Because prostate cancer is often a slow-growing disease, we have reservations about checking prostate cancer because prostate cancer is so slow-growing.
That's an oncologist from Memorial Healthcare, Dr. Jonathan Silberstein. He says the prostate-specific antigen or PSA tests are usually done between the ages of 55 and 70. Of course, Biden is 82. So he believes the former president likely had prostate cancer for many years, if not decades. So, of course, then the question becomes, how come it wasn't recognized before, if that's the case?
Probably there's something to do with his age. Probably it has something to do with his activities and diet and environment, and probably it has something to do with his genetics.
Right. He wasn't willing to commit, since he obviously isn't the former president's doctor, whether he knew about it for a while and they hid this or he just found out about it.
Men who have the same genetic abnormality as many women with breast cancer, the BRCA mutation 1 or 2, have significantly increased risk.
And the White House expressing confidence in its medical staff. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, says the president's doctor knows what he's doing.
The White House physician we have here is phenomenal, and the team of physicians that take care of the president, particularly at Walter Reed Medical Center, are great.
Yeah, so the question is, will we find out? Did the president know for a long time? Is it a recent diagnosis? I don't know. Does it really matter in the end? Because he's not president anymore. All right, 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Alec.
Good morning, Noam Layden. We'll start here in Boston. The Mets dropped their series opener against the Red Sox. Final score 3-1. Jaron Duran had a double and a triple as the Red Sox tagged Mets ace Kodai Senga for 3 runs, the most he has given up all season. Senga fell behind 3-0 after 2 innings before settling down and retiring the last 7 batters he faced. He allowed 5 hits and 3 walks while striking out 5. New York dropped out of first place in the NL East for the first time since April 9th. The Mets' only run came on Tyrone Taylor's RBI single in the 3rd. New York Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said he'll be talking to Juan Soto about hustling out of the batter's box after the slugger watched his would-be home run bounce off the Green Monster for a single. Soto hit a 102-mile-an-hour line drive to left and stood watching as it sailed toward the 37-foot-high wall. The ball hit about 2/3 of the way up, and Soto was able to manage only a single. He denied lollygagging on the base paths. Quote, "I think I've been hustling pretty hard," he said post-game. But Soto had also failed to run hard out of the box on a ground-out Sunday night at Yankee Stadium. Quote, "We'll talk to him about it," Carlos Mendoza said. So we'll see how that turns out. Juan Soto starts running out of the box a little bit harder. Up next for the Mets, Clay Holmes gets to start in tonight's middle game of this 3-game series against the Red Sox. First pitch scheduled for 6:45 p.m. from Boston. As for the Yankees, Will Warren will start tonight's series opener in the Bronx against the visiting Texas Rangers. First pitch there, 7:05 p.m. from Yankee Stadium. To the NBA here, we're still looking ahead to tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Our New York Knicks will welcome in the Indiana Pacers for Game 1 of their Eastern Conference Finals series. The Knicks still 4.5-point favorites for Game 1 tonight. At 8:30, the Timberwolves and Thunder will get underway in OKC for Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. The Thunder in Game 1 are 7.5-point favorites. And in the NHL tonight at 8 p.m., the Panthers will visit the Hurricanes for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final there. That's at 8 p.m. once again from Carolina. That is your Sports Gnome. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Hey, business owners, make your cash secure again with Secure Cash, LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
WABC News Time 5:19. Vice President J.D. Vance met with Pope Leo over the weekend. He had his inaugural mass on Sunday, and we're getting reports about what that conversation was like. NBC's Rafe Sanchez reports on the invitation the Vice President made to the Pope, of course, who's from Chicago, to come visit the White House.
Pope Leo today holding a formal audience with Vice President Vance here at the Vatican. It was one of his first sit-down meetings with a world leader following yesterday's inaugural mass.
And while J.D. Vance was in Europe, he also met with President Zelensky.
We saw Vice President Vance meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. That is their first in-person encounter since that fiery showdown in the Oval Office back in February.
5:20, let's bring it back home out to California. There's new information about the man who died in what is believed to be an intentional bombing outside of a fertility clinic in Palm Springs, California over the weekend. The Palm Springs police chief says they're looking at everything when it comes to the investigation.
The investigation is currently ongoing, where we are looking into, with the FBI as the lead, looking into were there others involved in this planning of this or the execution of this.
The 25-year-old killed in the attack or in the bombing was 25-year-old Guy Bartkus, who was driven apparently by anti-natalist ideology. That's the belief that there's too many people being born. The FBI believes he intentionally targeted the reproductive center in Palm Springs. In fact, he left an online manifesto threatening the attack and mentioning a war against pro-lifers.
And right now it appears to me that it is purely his desire and his will that executed this unfortunate attack. But please understand that no stone will be unturned.
And the father of the reproductive center bombing suspect says he hasn't seen his son in more than a decade.
Last time I saw him, he was a good kid.
Richard Bartkus telling NBC News that when his son was 9 years old, he played with matches and set the family's home on fire.
He started changing a little bit. He started playing with it, light fire.
Bartkus says the last time he saw his son was more than a decade ago, and apparently the relationship not very good there.
We hadn't talked over the years. So it's wrong. Now I won't see him again.
Yeah. 522. First Lady Melania Trump joining President Trump for the signing ceremony of a bill that aims to protect people from sexual online content.
We will not tolerate online sexual exploitation, and especially it's gone on at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's getting worse and worse, and I think this is going to hopefully stop it.
The First Lady advocating for the Take It Down Today Act for quite a while, actually. It makes it a federal crime to share intimate images of someone online without their consent. That includes AI-generated images. President Trump talks about the Take It Down Act during the ceremony yesterday on the White House lawn.
Anyone who intentionally distributes explicit images without the subject's consent will face up to 3 years in prison.
And the First Lady acknowledging that it took quite an effort to get this bill passed.
Thank you all for coming together to prioritize people over politics.
Meanwhile, the president calling for an investigation now into celebrities who made appearances at campaign events for former VP Kamala Harris in the 2024 race for the White House. On Friday, he was taking shots at the celebs who backed Harris, including Taylor Swift.
Look, he is speaking about Taylor Swift's political views and how perhaps it has impacted the support of the American public for her work, and I will leave it at that.
That's the White House spokesman, Caroline Leavitt. Harris's campaign had several star-studded events that included appearances from Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, Oprah, who had previously said that they were not paid for their endorsements. Swift endorsed Harris, but never made a formal appearance on her behalf. President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill back on track. A GOP-led committee, which shot it down last week for not being conservative enough, met again and approved it.
I don't know anything about side deals or any deals. I just know we're at a place where we can take a vote.
That's Congressman Jody Arrington. He's from Texas. He heads the House Budget Committee. The package includes big bucks for immigration enforcement and an extension of President Trump's 2017 tax cuts. There are cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and clean energy funding. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the passing of the budget bill is why Americans sent Republicans to Washington. Here's more from the congressman from Texas, Arrington.
We're not going to disclose the deliberations.
524, yeah, there was apparently some infighting before this bill passed. A federal task force being deployed to Tennessee now after the FBI director, Kash Patel, labeled Memphis the homicide capital of the country.
That's following a string of deadly shootings over the weekend that left 3 people dead in less than 4 hours. Memphis Mayor Paul Young released a statement Monday saying the city is looking forward to learning more about the federal involvement. He added that, quote, locally, we're already seeing results. I'm Brian Shook.
The president of CBS News stepping down from his role as the network deals with a $20 billion lawsuit that was filed by President Trump.
Wendy McMahon said in a memo to CBS News staff, leading the organization has been, quote, a privilege and joy, but noted the past few months had been challenging. McMahon also added, quote, it's become clear she and the company do not agree on the path forward. Trump sued CBS, saying 60 Minutes edited a pre-election interview with former Vice President Harris. McMahon's decision to resign marks the second high-profile departure from the organization within the past month, as it also contends with an $8 billion merger. I'm Lisa Carton.
A San Antonio city councilman says he's serious about renaming the city's international airport in honor of Spurs coach Greg Popovich.
And has brought San Antonio to an international platform. He's the winningest coach in the history of the NBA.
He says if passed, this would rename the building. It would not change the airport codes, I guess. He says the coach Pop led the charge in making the NBA an international league by bringing in players from overseas, and he says he deserves the honor to have the airport in San Antonio named after him. I'm trying to think if there's anybody even similar to this of any other airport where an athlete or a coach I can't come up with it.
And the airport is an international-facing asset. I believe it's perfectly appropriate to name it after Greg Popovich.
All right, so now he has to convince the other city lawmakers in San Antonio that that's the case as well, and then he has to go to the federal government, so a couple steps ahead, but he thinks he can get it done.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noah Layden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noah on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 20th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sun and clouds today. The high, 68. Tonight and overnight, cloudy, low 55, and then Wednesday, rain. The high only going to be 58. If you are walking out the door with us right now, cool temperatures for May. It is 48 and clear in Yonkers up in Westchester County, 46 and clear in Pompton Lakes over in New Jersey, and it's 49 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour. New Jersey Transit train engineers reaching that tentative deal Sunday to end their 3-day strike that halted service for about 100,000 daily riders, including routes to Newark Airport, of course, across the Hudson right here to New York City. The union says its members would return to work this morning, and they have, and that trains would resume, and they have, and now they're going to look at this contract, and the thought is they will sign off.
I think this time we really have something that is going to treat engineers well, and the membership's going to like. In the future, we'll all have learned lessons from this, that we won't see a repeat of this the next time we're bargaining.
All right, so now we'll wait for this ratification vote, which actually went down to defeat last time, but they don't think that'll be the case this time. New Jersey Transit President Chris Calori, Governor Murphy, saying it's up to the union now.
So now it's time to get NJ Transit back to full speed for our commuters and riders.
I think we are particularly gratified that we were able to find a solution that meets the needs of the customers and our employees, and more importantly than all of it, the taxpayers of New Jersey.
WABC News Time 5:39. Let's go up to the Bronx. So we told you yesterday that there was a shooting Sunday night in the Fordham section of the Bronx. 2 people were hit. One was a man who was killed. The other was a woman who was shot in the leg. Well, now we come to find out that the bullets that they were hit by were not meant for them. It was like a block away. Some gang members were fighting with each other, and someone pulled out a gun. So here we go again with people being shot who aren't meant to be shot. I mean, it's bad enough you're shooting at each other, but now killing random innocent people. It was a beautiful night. Remember Sunday night? It was fantastic. So you can understand 7 o'clock at night why the streets would be packed in any neighborhood. People just enjoying the weather. So was 57-year-old Kevin Jennings. Innocent bystander shot in the head. This was East 188th Street. 6 or 7 shots were fired. He was killed. Jennings' niece, who does not want to be identified, says that she just can't believe her uncle is gone.
I miss him. I love him. I don't want to cry, but it's like a whole lot of stuff.
Good dude. Never had no problem with him. Always came over to help.
In fact, the niece said she just spoke to her uncle recently, and she says he was a good man, a generous person, and just how horrific way to die.
He was like an honest person, genuine, kind person that you could actually hang around and deal with him. It needs to stop, because innocent people is getting hurt.
Now, initially, they had cuffed 4 people right near the scene. They were all teenagers. But now police tell us they let them go because they weren't connected to the shooting. So the gunman is still on the loose. And we're also hearing from the other person, in this case, Starlee Sanchez. She was the one that was shot in the leg. So Jennings, unfortunately, took it to the head. She took it to the leg. And she spoke to Eyewitness News last night. She said she had planned to be outside with her kids. Again, it was a beautiful night, Sunday night. She told the kids to stay home and instead went to the local grocery store with her cousin. And that's when she was shot.
And I was about to go with my kids. They always go with me. And yesterday I said to my kids, no, stay home. I'm going with my cousin.
Yeah, so you can imagine, she says, thank God my kids were not with me. The 34-year-old, she's a married mother of 2, remembers passing the park where these gunmen were on her way to the supermarket, and she didn't make much of what was going on there.
At first, I thought it was like some fireworks happening, but then I felt something hit my leg.
So now she's at home recovering with the help of family. She says she may need a little more treatment. Of course, she says the other thing is, she's like, I got to get me and my kids out of this neighborhood before something like this happens again.
Imagine just going to the grocery store and getting hit.
No, I can't. It's just really outrageous. 5:42. Let's go over to Astoria, Queens. A man there found guilty yesterday in the brutal murder of FDNY paramedic Allison Russo. Do you remember this from September of 2022? This was a crime that really gripped the city. Russo was a 9/11 first responder, an FDNY veteran. She was stabbed 20 times while walking from her station house middle of the day to get a snack. 36-year-old who was convicted of the crime, Peter Zipolis, second-degree murder and weapons possession charges. He was found guilty yesterday, had pled not guilty. He actually testified in his own defense. When this case was over yesterday, Allison Russo's brother spoke out after the verdict was read.
Today, we're thankful and relieved that justice has been served. This brings closure for my family. Nothing can erase the pain that I think justice was done. Happy to start to move forward. But Allison will continue to be missed.
Zisopoulos had said that he was sleeping during the brutal attack. He had testified that he never left his home the night of the killing. He said he was asleep until police came to knock at his door. At that time of his arrest, he allegedly had a bloody kitchen knife in his pocket. Arresting officers believed at the time that that was the murder weapon. But now here we are with a 61-year-old Russo, a 25-year-old FDNY veteran, a 9/11 first responder, really dead for no reason, just some maniac stabbing her 20 times. They did not know each other. Her family, again, speaking out after the verdict was read yesterday.
There was tears of happiness in there. Tears of happiness and tears of sad. You know, we lost Allison over 2 years ago, but her life, you know, was put again in full force today, showing that she's still alive, and the person who did this is going to go away.
And now we're waiting for the sentencing portion of this case to begin. 5:44. In his first television ad in the race for mayor, there is no mention of Andrew Cuomo's opponents in the Democratic primary. I guess why should he mention them? He's, at least according to the polls, way ahead of them. No mention of President Donald Trump. What he does talk about, which is an interesting thought here, is he decided to talk about his leadership during COVID. So he dropped this ad yesterday. You'll start seeing it on TV, the internet, I'm sure, very soon. Here's what it sounded like.
It was the greatest health crisis in our history. And when New Yorkers were desperate for leadership, Andrew Cuomo delivered. He didn't just provide information in those daily COVID briefings. He acted, building emergency hospitals and deploying first responders. And he provided hope that we'd pull through this together. We did. Now New Yorkers face a city unaffordable and streets that don't feel safe. And in a crisis, you want someone who's delivered for us before. Paid for by Cuomo for NYC.
It is interesting that he doubled down on the pandemic, especially after nursing home deaths. He's going with that narrative as part of his campaign. You'll remember at the time, I'd forgotten about this, but he actually went on to receive an Emmy Award for his pandemic briefings. Do you remember this? I'd forgotten about it, but the award was rescinded after those allegations of sexual harassment surfaced, which forced him out of office. Cuomo still maintains this huge lead in recent polling among all the other Democrats in the race for mayor here in the city. All right, 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Here's Justin Ellick.
Thank you, Noam Layden. Start here in Boston. The Mets dropped their series opener against the Red Sox. The final score, 3-1. But Juan Soto, he got caught not really hustling out of the box once again. You might remember against the Yankees on Sunday, there was a nice little ground ball, hard hit ground ball up the middle. DJ LeMahieu had to make a sliding stop, and Soto was caught not hustling out of the box.
What's going on there?
Could have beat that one out. I'm not sure, but he hits a ball last night off the Green Monster, and it was like a good 25 feet below the top of the Green Monster. So I'm not really sure what he was watching, how he really, thought maybe his depth perception was off, but he thought that ball was going out. Carlos Mendoza said he'll be talking to Juan Soto about hustling out of the batter's box after he watched that would-be home run bounce off the Green Monster for a single. It was 102 miles an hour off the bat, but he stood watching it as it sailed toward the 37-foot wall. The ball hit about two-thirds of the way up, and Soto was able to manage only a single. He did deny lollygagging on the base path, saying, quote, "I think I've been hustling pretty hard post-game." But Soto had also failed, like I said, to run hard out of the box on a ground out Sunday night at Yankee Stadium. So Mendoza says we're going to have to talk to him about it, and we'll see how that turns out. Up next for the Mets, Clay Holmes gets to start in tonight's middle game of this three-game set against the Red Sox. First pitch scheduled for 6:45 from Boston. As for the Yankees, Will Warren will start tonight's series opener in the Bronx against the visiting Texas Rangers. First pitch there, 7:05 p.m. from the stadium. To the NBA, we're all looking ahead still to tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The Knicks will welcome in the Indiana Pacers for Game 1 of their Eastern Conference Finals series. The Knicks in Game 1, 4.5-point favorites. And tonight, the Timberwolves and Thunder will get underway in the Western Conference Finals, Game 1. The Thunder in Game 1, 8:30 p.m. tip-off tonight, 7.5-point favorites.
Who do we want again in this series?
I think we want the Timberwolves.
Okay.
And it'd be cool to have a little rendezvous or a reunion, if you will, for our Knicks and Julius Randle's on the Minnesota Timberwolves,
right,
and Dante DiVincenzo's on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that could be a cool matchup. But I think the Thunder will ultimately prevail. They're just too good. And on the ice tonight, Noam, the Panthers and the Hurricanes in Carolina will get their Eastern Conference final underway at 8 p.m. That is your sports, Noam, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. The man accused of starting that wildfire in Ocean County, New Jersey last month, which forced thousands of people to evacuate, scorched like 15,000 acres, says he's not solely responsible for it. Joseph Kling speaking to reporters alongside his attorneys after a hearing in Toms River yesterday.
Why didn't you put the fire out?
I was the first to leave because my buddy crashed his dirt bike. I was going to take him to Soch down in Manahawkin.
So why didn't you put the fire out then?
There was other people there and I tried.
You did try to put the fire out?
Yes, I did.
How?
I kicked dirt on it and everything, had the flame almost out, and then other people were there.
And how many people were there?
Like 16 others. There was 20 in total.
Yeah, so Kling now says he was not the last one to leave that bonfire. He said he did try to put it out before he left, but he said there were other people still in the woods when he walked out. In fact, during testimony at Kling's detention hearing earlier this month, prosecutors actually read from a statement claiming Kling had blamed, quote, Mexicans in the woods for starting the fire. But now he says, okay, I was there, but I wasn't the last one to leave that fire.
Did you tell the police?
I told them that there was other people down there. They ignored me, and about 25 minutes later, they let me leave.
Typically, he noted to the police he didn't even ignite the fire, which is the most important factor.
Yeah, that woman you hear there, one of his lawyers. Kling was let out of jail 2 weeks ago, but now required to wear an ankle monitor. The teen was in court for an early deposition hearing, which was continued to a later date, found guilty of the most serious arson charge. He could spend up to about 10 years behind bars. While we're in New Jersey, several teens arrested after a brawl broke out at the Menlo Park Mall in Edison over the weekend. We're getting more details about this. The chaos erupted, apparently, after hundreds of teenagers showed up for a gathering planned through TikTok. One officer injured in the mayhem. It started with a call-out days before on social media by a big influencer for his followers to descend on the Menlo Park Mall, and they did. Here was a shopper who was there on Saturday night.
I know a couple people got arrested, and I know that there was multiple waves of them running out. Right. There was like 5 waves for like 2 hours.
Now, police telling us they called it 300 juveniles were so out of control that police from surrounding towns had to respond as well. It took about an hour and a half to break up the gathering.
They were having a brawl. They were pushing, shoving, and fighting. Our officers arrived, and they started fighting with our officers.
7 juveniles arrested, most for resisting arrest, none of which were from Edison. One was arrested for assault of an officer. All of the juveniles released to their parents eventually. Yesterday, the mayor of Edison, boy, he was mad. He said he spoke about this incident and he blamed the teenagers' parents for not knowing where their kids were on Saturday night.
What are the parents doing? Aren't the parents aware that they're traveling 45 minutes to cause a disturbance within Edison Township? It makes no sense. Parents need to be focused on their kids, making sure that they're not causing this type of rowdiness in other towns.
And the mayor placing the rest of the blame on Simon Properties, which owns the mall. He said they didn't seem to handle this out-of-control situation very well. He said the security was inadequate, the cameras, not enough of them.
We expect them to have more license plate readers throughout the property. We expect them to have more cameras throughout the mall as well as the parking deck. We wanted to ensure that they significantly ramp up their private security within the mall.
Now, Menlo Park Mall sent us a statement last night saying the behavior during Saturday night's incident is not tolerated at their property. They also thank law enforcement for their quick response. 5:53. A surprise turn last night in the follow-up to that protest at a controversial ICE detention center in Newark.
Details, including court papers, were not provided. Interim New Jersey U.S. Attorney Alina Habba announced it all on social media. She says she's dropping the case against Baraka, quote, for the sake of moving forward. Habba says MacIver's been charged with assaulting, impeding, or interfering with law enforcement. MacIver's lawyer, former U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman, calls the charges, quote, spectacularly inappropriate, saying she was doing her job as a member of Congress. It's the first time the Trump Justice Department has criminally charged a sitting lawmaker during his second term. No word of the two other House members present at the May 10th confrontation, Rob Menendez Jr. and Bonnie Watson Coleman, will also face charges. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New Jersey.
The Trump administration lifting a stop work order now on the Empire Wind Farm, allowing construction to continue offshore off Long Island on that wind farm. The project being built off the coast of Long Beach would power about 500,000 homes in New York City. That according to the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, who was applauding the move by the Trump administration to let this farm continue being built.
This project means that we will have cleaner, healthier air. It also means that 1,500 people that were put out of work will now go back to work. Empire
Wind Farm was already under construction when the Department of Interior announced that stop work order on April 16th, but now they're back in business, apparently. The MTA bringing back the A-Line subway service starting yesterday to the Rockaways after it was down for a long time. Governor Hochul celebrating the reopening yesterday.
It was literally falling apart, and it became very, very dangerous. There was debris on the tracks. We saw a lot of disintegration there. So there was no other choice than to replace the whole section.
Yeah, so the A train was shut down for 4 months because of extensive damage from Superstorm Sandy. It took a while to get the work done. It impacted about 125,000 people in the Rockaway. So this was big news yesterday.
What I want all of us today is to feel relief and a peace of mind finally. Relief because the MTA did deliver this restoration work on budget and on time.
Yeah, and yesterday, New York City officials, civil rights leaders marking what would have been Malcolm X's 100th birthday.
It was Malcolm that globalized the struggle, took us all over the world, and made it more than just civil rights, which we needed and still need, but also human rights on an international level.
That's the Reverend Al Sharpton, who was among those who spoke at his celebration yesterday. Of course, Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965. His daughter speaking out as well.
And justice for our father, for our mother, African diaspora, and all other peoples around the world.
Mayor took part yesterday as well.
We cannot alleviate, nor can we eradicate that pain. But we can do our job, and I'm going to do my job as the mayor of the city of New York, a place that he changed forever. We have the street in his name. Now let's live up to his name.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?